This is something that happened to me back in 2023, and I've kept it to myself out of fear. Fear that I will not be believed, and also out of fear that if I tell people, then I have to accept that it actually happened to me, and wasn't just something that my scared brain just made up. I was only around 14 years old when this happened, and I am barely 16 now typing this here. When this happened, I was staying in rural Las Vegas with my father. He was a bit of a deadbeat and never really saw me or even really cared about me, honestly. I think I saw him maybe twice in all of my years before this, and my mom had to do everything by herself. Well, I don't know what changed, but out of nowhere he started contacting me, pestering my mom to visit me, and trying to pretend that he really cared about me and my hobbies, and about wanting to make an effort. He went on about how he had found the Lord and rejected his past sinful ways and wanted to be a proper father. I wasn't really all that interested in seeing him, but my mom said that I had to give it a chance, and she sent me to stay with him for a few weeks once school was out. He wasn't broke, not by any means, but he refused to pay my mom any money all the same. It was rough growing up because we didn't really have anything while he was living it big, but I guess that isn't really important for what happened. I had been at my father's house for like 2 weeks or so at this point. I was up in a room upstairs that was makeshift and clearly not prepared for me. I think it was around 10 p.m. or so. I was watching TV upstairs because I was so tired and was drifting off to sleep. Like, I was barely even keeping my eyes open at this point. I remember my dad was downstairs with the dog and was watching TV or taking him outside or something, I'm not sure. I was trying to spend as little time with him as possible. He was really insistent on me praying with him and dragging me along to church and making me have chats with all these random people I did not know who knew way too much about me. It was just really awkward. Anyway, so I am drifting in and out of sleep, and all of a sudden, I hear this sound that just rips me awake. It sounded like some fireworks had just gone off, but not quite. I heard that sound, and my eyes shot open, and then on about a 5 to 10 second delay, I saw this really big bright light just light up the whole sky. My room was pitch black, with only the light from the TV illuminating things, but when this flashed in the sky, my room looked like it was daytime. This happened a few times, always with that delayed flash. By the second time, I gotten up off my ass and was looking outside the window. I could not really see anything outside at first, so I assumed that my dad was indoors. He didn't call for me, so I wasn't really panicked or anything. The third time the fireworks sound goes off, and I see this insane flashing, I can tell it's getting closer or something. The bright light just seemed closer, but it was hard to tell, as I had to shield my eyes to stop myself from going blind. I think I heard the fireworks sound one more time before seeing something blink in my vision, going from the sky and into the yard. It was like a star in the sky, blinking in and out, and way less intense than the previous flashing. It blinked from the sky, blinked out, and then I saw it blink somewhere down in my yard, which was really quick. I remember thinking to myself, how did the blinking light move that far that quickly? And when I saw the blink in my yard, I heard this sound. It sounded like someone spraying a fire extinguisher consistently, but louder and a little bit different. The grass in the yard, it was kind of overgrown because my dad apparently was not the gardening type, and I could see it moving pretty rapidly, like there was some strong wind. Only, there was no sound of wind outside, and as far as I knew, there was no wind at all that day. Just a blisteringly hot day. So my eyes are glued to this window, because I have never seen anything like this before in my life. I'm watching, and I can see this grass change color, almost, but quite quickly. It goes from a greenish, I think the grass was already kinda dying, to this brown color, before turning black, and then after a minute or so of seeing this, the grass stops billowing, and I hear this funk sound. The walls are pretty thin, so you can kinda feel when people slam doors and other stuff, and so I think I felt whatever this funk was. Bear in mind that this billowing grass, it wasn't the entire yard, it was just like one little section. I don't really remember exactly how big it was. It was at this point that my eyes got blasted by that light again. It caught me off guard, and I had these black spots in my eyes, and it was hard to see for a few seconds, but then I saw the light, blinking in and out. It was like someone kept turning their high beams on rapidly, back and forth. When I was not being blinded, it looked like there was some kind of tall object in the yard, in that same patch that was billowing and changed color. All I can really remember about it was that it was tall and almost like a spiral. Some kind of metal built so that it was spiraling upward. I really did not see it for very long, only for a few seconds, because I saw something else very quickly and ran over to my bed and jumped back into it. I saw someone standing in my yard, and they were tall. The weird part was that I could see that metal object, and no one was standing there, but after I blinked, someone suddenly was standing there. And then I blinked again, and there was a second guy, just as tall as the first. All of this in just 2 blinks. I literally just dropped to my knees from where I was standing and crawled over to my bed and got in. I did not want to call for my dad because I didn't know if the people outside would hear me because of the thin walls. I think I laid there while gripping my covers for about a minute in total before I heard a window crash downstairs. I screamed on instinct. I don't know why I could not even stop myself. I screamed, and after 5 seconds, my window just shattered too. It shattered because this thing had jumped through my window. It was down on all fours like a dog, and it looked hideous. The head was way too big for the tiny body. It was large at the back. When it jumped through the window, it left big stab marks into the floor. The legs and the feet, they were just like big stumps that were points. Just these sharp points at the end instead of feet or paws or whatever. It did not look at me at first. It started sniffing and inspecting the room while I just started biting my covers to get me to stop shivering out of anxiety. It basically inspected the entire room before proceeding to stand up, but it was so strange. It seemed to jam its back legs into the ground even further. I could see all of the hard wood on my floor splintering, and this big crack running through it almost. Once it jammed its back legs further in, it started to rise upwards. It was using its back legs as leverage as it tilted backwards and lifted itself up, but it was so awkward and janky. It did not look like it could balance properly and was swaying back and forth as it did so. Once it was fully standing up, it looked so tall. It looked twice my height and was not far off hitting the ceiling. Its torso seemed to have lengthened when it stood up too. I remember it being quite boxy and short when on all fours, but it seemed almost stretched at this point. And then I saw it rip its hands apart. It had this stump that was like a point, almost like a praying mantis, but it ripped apart into these digits that I guess were more like a hand. The digits, the fingers, they were all just as long as the one stump, but a lot thinner, and it did this for both arms. I don't remember it doing this with its legs, but I was not really focused on it at the time. It was at this point I was shaking like a leaf. It towered over me and stabbed its way over to me with its feet. Just kept putting bigger and bigger holes into the floor as it walked. It bent over slightly and started to sniff me up close like it did the rest of the room. I remember it sniffed me up and down before making this face and hacking something up. I heard the throat sounds, and then it spit something up onto my floor that I didn't see. I started closing my eyes at this point, and I felt this sharp pain, and all of a sudden, I was in the air. This thing had grabbed me, but to grip me, it had to stab me with its fingers, I guess you could call them. They were not deep stabs, but they hurt, and I still have little prick scars from where the holes were made. It grabbed me around my ribcage. At this point, I just remember bits and pieces, but some bigger things do stick out into my mind. Some things that I kinda wish I didn't remember. This thing took me downstairs. It took me into the living room, and I could see my dad lying down on the floor. He was awake and was looking at me. I had never seen him look frightened before, but he looked really scared. I remember he started shouting and screaming at me the second that he saw me. I don't really remember what he said. He just kept shouting, and it sounded like his voice was becoming faint. He did not take any breaths and just kept talking and shouting. I remember that this thing lifted me high up against a wall and pinned me to it, but I don't know how. I was just hanging there, but I did not feel any pain and see this thing use anything to suspend me. I was looking down and watching. There was another thing, just like the one that crashed into my room. It was down next to my father, but walked over to me. It sniffed me and pricked me with one of its fingers, and then just walked back to my dad. I remember them both being over my dad at this point, and he started begging and pleading. One of them was gripping him by his hair. It had its finger spike things almost interlocked upside down to grab as much of his hair as possible, but my dad was not even trying to wriggle away. I remember, and this is one of the worst parts for me somehow. I remember my dad started to try and bargain with them. He said something about leaving him alone and taking me instead. He said that they could have me and take me if they left him. He started going on and on about how he won't tell anyone and that they can leave and just take me. I remember I started just bawling my eyes out, but I never said anything. The other thing, the one who was not holding my dad's hair, took one of its fingers and spat something onto it. It was some kind of thick glob that it hacked up and spat onto the finger. Then it stabbed the finger very slowly into my dad's throat, almost like a needle or something. My dad was kicking his legs, but could not move for some reason. He was shouting and pleading, but once it had stabbed its finger all the way through, I could not hear his voice anymore. I kept seeing his mouth move, like he was talking, like he was trying to talk, but I could not hear my dad after that. I'm sorry for how this sounds. I've just gone over and over this again and again in my head. It sounds like I remember a lot, but this is years of thinking and writing and going over the details again and again in my head. I still can't remember more of what they looked like. I probably got half of these details wrong. The first few days after the memory was so crystal clear, but after those few days, it was immediately foggy, and I had to fight myself to remember things. I had to physically strain to figure out details. Some of these details only came back to me after months and even years sometimes. Like, I would try all night to think about what exactly happened to no avail, but then I would wake up and remember a random detail, which could easily mean I made the detail up while sleeping, so I'm sorry if this sounds like bullshit or too detailed. I am just trying my best. I remember one of the things stabbed him again, but slowly again. Near his wrist, I think. I saw some blood come out. I think it either sniffed it or licked it. And then the worst part happened. The one not restraining my dad took all of his needle fingers and just made this claw-like motion with its hand, and then just put it over the top of my dad's head and stabbed down harder than before. My dad's facial expression instantly changed, but I did not hear anything come out of his mouth. And then I saw it moving its hands, like it was turning a doorknob around, just back and forth, before it brought its hand up and hair and skin came with it. At that point, it's hard to remember a lot of visual detail. I think my vision was blinking in and out, I guess from shock, I guess also from the tears in my eyes. When the skin and the hair came away, they both got down and started sniffing, but not the bit that they pulled away. They started sniffing the top of my dad's head. There was a gap now, but I could not see more than that. And then I saw them licking, and then more sniffing. And they communicated with each other, but I don't remember how, or it looked like they did anyway. A motion or a look or a sound or something. I can't fully remember. and then one of them inserted a needle-like finger very slowly into the top of my dad's head. I saw my dad jolt and spasm, and he looked like he was having a seizure. And then they did something to each other again, I assume to communicate. Then they continued with this, with the sniffing and licking and stabbing for I don't know how long. It could have been minutes or hours with how hazy my memory is at this point. At some point, I remember passing out, and when I woke back up again, I was lying on the floor, and those things were gone. There were shards of glass all over the floor where the living room window had been smashed. I could not see any sign of my dog, although there was a puddle of urine in the corner, which I assume was dog pee at the time. I went over to my dad and started shaking him and crying and begging him to wake up. He was so heavy, but I managed to finally roll him over, and I saw the wound on the top of his head. It was less of a wound and more just a big hole, a crater, and it was just black. It was empty and carved out, and it went deep into his head. It was like his head was an empty bowl. I remember I turned and vomited and grabbed the phone out of my dad's pocket and called the police. I didn't even know the time because my eyes were still blurry and had dark splotches. I think if I couldn't dial 911 by voice and had to put in a passcode, I would not have been able to call the cops. Everything about the rest of that night was even blurrier. I remember a lot of cops came in. A lot. Like tons. I've never seen that many cops in one place before. I don't remember what I told them. I think I told them that someone broke in and killed my dad. I guess I must have said more than that. I had seriously never seen that kind of police response before. One officer put a blanket around me and took me to his cruiser. All I could do was cry and say I didn't know where the dog was, and he told me not to worry and that they would find it. He drove me down to the local station and gave me something warm to drink. The interview was also kinda hazy. He was really nice. He didn't pressure me and reassured me every single step of the way. He wasn't the only one in there. A couple of other people were in the room, but I never asked who they were. They were a bit more pushy, but the cop was so nice. I remember just bursting into tears at one point and telling them that they will never believe me. I think I got it out eventually. I don't remember how much detail that I went into. I think I mentioned enough. They called my mom to come and get me. I was there when they told her what happened. Home robbery gone wrong. Said my dad tried to fight back and they killed him for it. They said that I was in shock and that my brain was a little bit confused. I didn't even argue. I remember I sat in a room for hours and hours talking to someone with no break. I think they recommended a therapist to my mom that I talked to for about a year. They were really nice too. They never laughed at me, but tried to keep me grounded. They told me how the brain can make things up to protect us. They put me on some medication that my mom forced me to take. I felt lobotomized and like I'm just sleepwalking through life for the past few years. My mom won't even talk to me about what happened. If I even try to bring it up, she just shuts it down instantly. Every time I try, she just tells me that she will get my therapist for me again, so I've stopped trying. I am sitting here in tears because I feel so crazy and I don't know what to do. I don't know what I really saw or what happened to me. I heard about this website when I was up late at night because I don't sleep that well anymore. I read that this place is for real stories and that people here know things that other people don't, that they hide. I've seen tons of accounts from this place claiming they've seen things that no one else has. Is that true? Can anyone here help me with this? Does anyone here know what's going on? Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I have a story. Apologies if this is unclear, this is my first one. Background story. I am in a university program where we basically study the architecture of local villages. I am in the Southeast Asia area. I am setting up a big platoon tent in a field beside a small factory. We break off into groups that study different parts of the village. There is nothing special with my group. We interview some locals and measure houses. One group says that their area includes a river that is off limits. Let's call them the river group. Someone died in a flash flood some previous years near the river apparently. That night, all of the groups are cross-checking with each other's data. One girl, who is not from the river group, asks a girl from the river group, was the victim who died in the flash flood a woman? Yes. Was she wearing a hijab, Muslim clothing? Yes. Was she a nurse? Yes. Apparently, the girl saw the victim enter the tent and sit among us and disappear. I have got one or two more stories from this trip if anyone is interested. One of them involved a factory. I am still studying in the same village. I am staying in the big platoon tent. It's protocol to have night watch duty with 2 people in our university program. I wake the others up in case of wild animals, thieves, or spooks. Pretty common in Southeast Asia area, especially rural area. This guy, let's call him F, and this girl called P are on watch. F is watching the entrance beside the factory. We basically dump our trash and food leftovers and put them in a plastic bag near the factory wall. F is just looking around. He notices someone rummaging through our trash. Probably just a cat. He was right, well, not quite. He noticed that the cat is abnormally large. It has black fur. F focuses on the cat and whispers to P, "Do you see it?" Yes. F shines a flashlight on the cat. That's not a cat. It was a humanoid, sitting cross-legged but furry, and with the head of a cat too. What the hell? The cat man looks up to F. He blinks and it just runs away. It's gone in a flash. It moves so quickly, he could not even comprehend it. Ghosts are a part of Southeast Asia culture, but here in my country, that is something unheard of. We took it up to the village elder and asked him about it. It was basically an ancestor spirit, called it Meong, basically my language's version of meow. This next one is short though. It's about the survey team that went ahead of the others to find a suitable area to camp on. Basically, our program is 5 days of studying the village and 2 days of camping in the forest. The survey team finds a clearing in the woods. The equipment does not work, the compass is incorrect, and the flashlights do not work. The survey team went ahead and stays the night there. In the morning, their equipment is all broken, their flashlights are cracked. Apparently, they camped on an area where the flash flood has claimed some more lives. Looking back, the organizers of the program forgot to check for spooks with the village elder, Lamau. Some of my friends felt creeped out when we first went into the village, but I was actually oblivious to any paranormal vibes. I heard all of these when we returned. Okay, I will just spill and say that I am from Indonesia. The story here is an urban legend spread so many times that the details vary. It's a university lecture. The students are already in class. The main lecturer cannot attend. He is sick at home or busy with a meeting or something. The replacement lecturer comes in. The main lecturer messages the class representative. Class is cancelled. Do your assignments and read pages 45 to 65. Confusion. The class rep says, "Sir, the replacement lecturer is already here." Main lecturer, "Leave the class, right now, one at a time and calmly." The class rep drops his pencil and looks toward the lecturer desk. It has no legs. Holy shit. The class rep forwards the message to the class. They get out one by one. The last person to leave the class gets called out by the replacement. "So, all of you have known," is what he asked. Okay, I'm here again. It's 5 a.m. I'm about to post another one before I try and sleep. It's not very Southeast Asia spooks vibe, but what the hell. Be my friend. I will call him A. He visits a friend in the hospital with another friend. I'll call him B. They both have their own cars. The friends visiting, I mean. They leave the hospital and head on home. They are heading in the same direction at the highway. A is a smoker. He drives with his windows down. A is in front of B. B keeps on honking. What the hell? They pull over after they exit the highway. A says, "What the hell? Why are you honking?" B says that he saw someone enter A's car. B thought it was another of A's friends. Apparently, B saw someone limping out on the passenger window. B thought it was some kind of a joke on behalf of A's friend. A was alone the entire time. Okay, here is some background on this one. I used to live with my mother in the Welsh valleys, in a dead-end town in the middle of nowhere. Nearby is a forest that climbs higher and higher into the mountains, which leads to plateau plains, which leads into a very large forest, which will be the topic of the story. These forests scare my mother, who is deeply spiritual. She insists that there is cults or some sort of ape creature living there. I was 19 at the time that this happened. Me and my friend want to go camping in this large forest. We have a tent and provisions prepared. My mother is very upset and does not want us to go. She is practically begging us not to go. "There's something up there, Anon. Please don't go." I laugh at her and insist that we will be fine and that nothing weird will happen. We were very wrong. We spent about an hour and a half trekking to the forest. We walk around a bit to try to find a good spot. We had never been here before. The first thing that's weird is this previous picture. It looks like a car had crashed into a tiny little shanty town / house. There are not any roads around. Okay, well, that's strange. We keep walking and come to a spot, picture related. It's beautiful and has a very magical feeling to the place. We set up camp and have a good time making a little campfire and cooking food and listening to music. It's around 7:30 p.m. and it's starting to get dark, really dark. We get into the tent and try to get some sleep. Neither of us are very tired, so we just keep on talking. "Hey man, there is a twig breaking quite close. It sounds like it's coming from the cliffs just above us, previous picture." We look each other in the eyes and we're like, that was weird. We keep trying to talk, but every time we talk, we are interrupted by the sound of footsteps. Every time that we stop talking, the footsteps stop. It's now getting very close. We look each other in the eyes and hold the silence for 30 seconds. This very loud, ape-like sound comes from the opposite direction. It sounds extremely inhuman and sounded just like an ape. We both look at each other in the eyes. We are leaving and abandoning our tent and everything. Screw it, let's just get out of here. We get our shoes on as soon as possible and start walking back in the near pitch black darkness. I use my phone as a torch. It had 10% battery left, so we needed to get back as soon as possible. We get lost and take the wrong path to a dead end. There are voices from all directions. They start making the same inhuman voices at different times, like they're communicating with each other. I am officially terrified. We start running in the opposite direction and find the path that led back to town. We head up the path and reach the plateau, and we feel safe. Not much happened on the way back home, apart from 100 sheep blocking the way to the forest, leading to town. When I got home, my mother was so relieved that I got home. Apparently she had been crying all day and knew that something bad was going to happen. When we went back to get the tent, everything was untouched. If anyone wants to hear any more stories, I don't mind. Okay, I will rattle off a couple of short ones. I was 7 or 8 years old for this first one. I was living in a different place in West Wales with my mother and sister. Out of the corner of my eyes, I keep seeing a little girl in a white dress when I'm coming down the stairs quite often. My mother asked me if I've seen any spirits that look like a little girl with a white dress. I say yes, we've both seen her. Hatman. I was 10 years old. I am sleeping on the couch watching TV. I suddenly start to feel this physical presence. I look over my shoulder behind the couch. There is a very tall shadow person with a hat, and he is staring into my soul. He does not move, and I can see him clear as day. My only reaction is to bury my head into the covers until I pass out from exhaustion. I tell my mother what I've seen. She says that she has seen him too, and many others in my family have, even those who are not into spooky stuff. I shrugged the Hatman experience off as I got older as hypnagogia, but a couple of years ago whilst I was scrolling X, I saw an image posted that was very similar to pic related, and I was overcome with pure terror, like a deer caught in the headlights of a car. I just froze up seeing that picture. How can all these people imagine the same exact person? A side note, my mother has had a lot of paranormal experiences too. Some of them are very dark, but I do not remember them. Here is a tiny psychic story. My mother is at a bar with my ex-stepfather. This guy comes over that knows my stepfather. He introduces himself. My mother explains that she sometimes reads palms, and he asked to get his read. She says, "I know this sounds weird, but you have a big scar around here on your abdomen," and she points where the scar is on herself. The guy goes as white as a sheet and takes my stepfather to the bathroom. The guy is like, "What the hell, bro? How the hell did she know I had this scar?" and shows him the scar exactly where my mother said.